Welcome back to Atlas of Knowledge. In Episode 1, we explored how geography forms the stage upon which history unfolds. Today we turn to one of humanity's most dramatic transitions, the Age of Discovery, the story of how ocean voyages reshaped the map of the world, toppled old empires, and launched new ones. It is also the story of cuisines transformed, of knowledge exchanged, and of encounters, sometimes wondrous, often brutal, between civilizations. Before caravels set sail into the Atlantic, the known world was bound together by the Silk Road, a vast web of routes carrying silk from China, spices from India, and gems from Central Asia into Europe. For centuries, great cities like Samarkand, Baghdad, and Constantinople thrived on this traffic. But by the late 14th and 15th centuries, these arteries were under strain. The Ottoman Empire, after capturing Constantinople in 1453, controlled the most direct east-west passages. They did not close them, but they taxed them heavily. Meanwhile, the decline of the Mongol Empire left gaps of instability in Central Asia, where caravans risked banditry and political unrest. The result was rising costs and falling reliability. Europe's hunger for pepper, cinnamon, silk, and porcelain only grew, yet the old routes had become perilous. Geography itself was pushing Europeans toward a new solution: the sea. Portugal and Spain, perched on the Atlantic edge, invested heavily in maritime exploration. By hugging Africa's coast or sailing westward, they sought to bypass the overland bottlenecks. And while Iberians led this first wave, northern powers, England, France, and the Netherlands, would soon rise to challenge them. Their role, and the rivalries that followed, will be part of later episodes in our journey. Portugal took the lead. Prince Henry the Navigator sponsored expeditions down Africa's Atlantic coast. Mariners charted winds and currents, learning how to harness the Volta Mar, the great Atlantic gyre that allowed ships to return home safely. In 1488, Bartolomeu Dias rounded the Cape of Good Hope, proving the Indian Ocean could be reached from the Atlantic. 10 years later, Vasco da Gama completed the journey to Calicut in India, connecting Europe and Asia by sea for the first time. The implications were enormous. Spices, once dependent on perilous caravans, could now flow directly by ship. Spain, meanwhile, gambled west. In 1492, Christopher Columbus, sailing under the Spanish crown, landed in the Bahamas. He thought he had reached Asia, but instead revealed continents unknown to Europeans. This moment set off a cascade of consequences. Within a generation, conquistadors Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro would topple the Aztec and Inca empires, unleashing torrents of silver and gold across the Atlantic. Spain's gamble remade not only its own fortunes, but the entire global balance. Portugal and Spain, wary of each other's claims, turned to diplomacy backed by papal authority. The Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494 drew a line down the Atlantic, granting Spain most of the Americas, and Portugal rights over Africa, Asia, and Brazil. This neat division ignored existing civilizations, but it reflected the audacity of two small kingdoms now claiming dominion over much of the earth. The voyages of Ferdinand Magellan, begun in 1519, demonstrated the planet's full scale. Though Magellan himself perished in the Philippines, his fleet returned to Spain in 1522, completing the first circumnavigation. This was more than a feat of navigation. It was proof that the world was round, vast, and interconnected by oceans. Geography had become global. It was about maps and empires, but also about biology and culture. The Columbian exchange describes the transfer of plants, animals, and diseases between the old and new worlds. Europe gained tomatoes, potatoes, maize, and cacao, transforming diets from Ireland to Italy. Conversely, the Americas received wheat, sugar, cattle, and horses, along with smallpox, measles, and influenza, which devastated indigenous populations. This exchange reshaped daily life across continents. Cartographers produced increasingly accurate world maps, like the 1507 Waldseemüller map, the first to label America. Astronomers, navigators, and shipbuilders advanced their crafts. Artists and writers responded too. In 1516, Thomas More wrote Utopia, reflecting on the idea of societies in an age intoxicated by new horizons and anxious about their consequences. The riches of the New World, silver from Potosi, sugar from Caribbean plantations, spices from the Indies, fueled European economies. global trade routes linked Seville, Lisbon, Goa, Manila, and Mexico City. This era birthed the first truly global economy, financed by merchants, bankers, and empires alike. Indigenous civilizations suffered conquest, forced labor, and cultural disruption. The Atlantic slave trade, tied to sugar and plantation economies, uprooted millions of Africans. The story of exploration is thus both one of human ingenuity and one of human suffering. To understand our modern world, we must hold both truths together. By the late 16th century, northern powers entered the stage. English seafarers like John Cabot probed North America. The French explored the St. Lawrence River. The Dutch, masters of commerce, would soon challenge Portuguese dominance in the East Indies. These northern rivals will play leading roles in our later episodes as empires, capital, and revolutions reshaped the world. The Age of Discovery was not a single event, but a turning point in the human journey. Oceans, once barriers, became highways that bound continents together. The foundations of our modern globalized world, its opportunities and its injustices, were laid. The book Explorers, A New History by Matthew Lockwood attempts a global and inclusive history of exploration. It redefines explorer to include not just famous European navigators, but people from many continents, indigenous guides, migrants, and nomads. In our next episode, we will follow the flow of silver, sugar, and spices into the birth of global capital and the great transformations it unleashed. In the meantime, like or subscribe for more immersive videos from Athena World Journey. Thanks for watching.